The important thing is to never stop questioning. I cannot find a better quote because this is precisely what I believe. In a class of about 60 students, many teachers prefer to adopt the silent class strategy. Listen, listen, don't talk. But if you do say something during the class, Hanglin, go stand outside. Did I want to stand outside the classroom with the sun on my face? Of course not. So I learned to be a quiet student, one that simply does not ask questions, and as a result, finishes the lessons with a number of unanswered questions. How many of you are also quote-unquote the students? Whether you're in high school or university, if you are, I hope that you will be inspired by my story about a simple trick that completely changed my life. To be clear, there's nothing wrong with listening quietly throughout the lesson because some people can only study effectively in this way, but it didn't work for me. At university, I realized that whenever I had a question in mind, I often cannot help but ponder the question so deeply that the teacher's voice just seemed to fade into the background. You know, this feeling is just like when you're playing the video games and your mouse keeps talking to you, right? So as a result, my first midterm was a total disaster. I got 60 in linear algebra and 54 in calculus. Can you believe that? So what did I do? Well, let's not talk about study for a second. Let's talk about movies. You never struggle to watch a movie at home, do you? Stretching out your legs on a cozy sofa with the popcorn and a coke in your hand, a few slurps and burps, and the movie's finished. But when you wake up tomorrow and try to tell your friend about that movie, what's that bad guy? Yeah, the car racing in LA. What's that San Francisco? You see, you forget most of the details. But imagine another scenario, and let's go back to the sofa. This time, you're not alone. You're sitting with your best friend, and let's call him Wang. And Wang is such a chatterbox, and is questioning everything in the movie. The timeline is completely wrong. Captain America should have been the same age after he came back in time to get rid of the Infinity Stones. They robbed the bank without even using gloves? The police are gonna arrest him for sure. You see, it's a bit annoying, right? But guess what? Wang will remember most of the details tomorrow morning and even next year. You see, once you start questioning a movie, you're more engaged. You think, you interact, you discuss, and you understand the movie in depth. The only downside is that you might ruin one of your friends' quiet movie night, which I don't recommend. If actively watching the movie helps our understanding and memory of it, wouldn't the same apply to our studies? But knowing how to ask questions is essential. Take me as an example. I decided to change how I study after my midterm blowout because I don't want to fail any courses again, right? The trick is simple. Whenever I had a question in mind, I ask it immediately. You see, once I force myself to process and understand what the teacher is saying, I often spot some flaws. And now that I'm clear about the importance of asking questions and try to save my exams, now all I need to do is to take the first step. Ask it. You may feel bumpy at first, but hey, the first step is always the toughest. And the more comfortable you become, the easier it gets, and your question will become more precise and meaningful. And just like our example of watching a movie, your understanding about the subject will be deeper. Once I started asking questions, I realized that sometimes my question actually helped the course to flow better. They even sometimes act as a link to introduce what the teacher was about to say. And my memory for that part of the lesson is usually much clearer and lasts much longer. And that's how I know if I had asked a good question. So eventually, at the end of semester, my final grade no longer start with a 5 or 6. It starts with a 9 and sometimes even a 3-digit number. Now, it may sound very exciting to adopt this way of study. We should also be careful not to disturb the people who just want to enjoy the class quietly. So I'm conscious to not constantly ask questions. But why is it important for us to ask our question immediately, you may ask? Why don't we just ask our teacher after the class? Well, First of all, it seems to train us to react much faster, and it helps us to answer the question right away, because sometimes we just forget about the question after a 2-hour-long lecture, right? And what's more, and what's interesting is, as my calculus teacher says, when you don't understand something, the people around you, most likely they don't understand it either. And they will thank you for asking a question for them. The important thing is to never stop questioning. A great mind like Albert Einstein is always so inspiring. So I discovered that if I had a question in mind, and if I asked it immediately, I learn better and faster. It's so simple, and yet it has been so valuable to me, and I hope that it will be the same to you. So, any questions?